Good morning, everybody.
Hello, my name is Simon.
And I'm Miguel.
Imagine a place with crystal blue sea, with golden vast plains and green dense forest filled with life. Imagine a country that is small but still big enough to provide home to 3 different cultures intertwined throughout the history and nowadays united in one. The place that you have all just imagined is my country, my Croatia.
Our high school has approximately 1,000 students and is popular for being a school which stands against racism, a school with courage. Originally, our school was founded to welcome refugees from East Germany as well as from other parts of the world. Thank you very much.
We are happy to be here today and represent our country, Romania, our town, Filipești de Pădure, and our school, Filipești de Pădure High School.
We are glad to participate to the Euroscola program. We wish that it will be a constructive experience for everyone, and we are proud to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Peter. This is Ewan, Evan and Conleth. We represent Ireland. Recently, we've experienced an economic period which has been less than prosperous. But we coped. We formulated recovery, and now we're back on track. This says a lot about the Irish character. We're resilient. We can always pick ourselves up, and we can always dust ourselves off.
We saw that Euroscola was looking for new superstars, so this is Alexandra.
Now and then I think of when we were together. Like when you said you felt so happy you could die. But you didn't have to cut me off, making I can never happen, and now we were nothing. And I don't even need your love. You treat me like a stranger, and that feels so rough. Thank you.
How do you think the European Union could do better in uniting all the people of Europe?
Hi, I'm Alex from Austria. I'm sure you heard about the recent election in Greece, and I thought about what would a so-called haircut or leaving from Greece would mean from the European Union in like a bureaucratic way.
About the fertility of people in Europe. The descendant crisis, for example, in Portugal, is a very important matter. Most of the population in Europe, it's becoming very old. And don't you think that Europe should participate more avidly in this matter?
All right. As a Frenchman, since the events in Paris, we have seen national measures taken, such as military and police deployment, and I was wondering if there were European measures that would be taken, such as maybe the thought of the Schengen zone or some other technical and geographical measures. That was it.
Hi, I'm Liam from Ireland. I would like to ask the question, what are the specific roles of the European Parliament in appointing the European Commission, and can that whole process be improved when the next Commission is chosen in 5 years' time? Thank you.
As we all know, the European Union introduces a lot of legislation. Some of this legislation is nearly ridiculed in the press as being unnecessary and pedantic. What would you say have been the most important things that the European Union has done to improve the lives of its citizens? Thank you.
Now, you said that it was something that we couldn't envisage, the fact that a state might leave the European Union. With that in mind, how would you explain the uptick in support for Euroscepticism, and that there are some exceptions to the single currency in Europe? I'm keen to hear your answer. Thank you.
To what extent do you think European Union should get involved in national issues of its members? Because lately it has been a controversial issue in some countries. So what's your opinion? Thank you.
Who do you think has more power in the European Union? The European Parliament the German parliament, or the biggest companies and banks? Thank you.
Madame, Monsieur, bonjour.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Étant donné que nous sommes tous étudiants,
We're all
nous
students
discutons-
here.
nous discutons
With that mind,
ensemble.
we're here to discuss things, and that's why we're wondering why we don't all have the same school program.
Today in this chamber there are 600 young people, young Europeans. We've shown our passion for Europe through a series of competitions, yet many of us don't have the votes in national and European elections. Should the EU be doing more to advocate, let's say, giving the vote to 16-year-olds?
I'm Panayotis from Greece, and I would like to ask, what are the decisions that have already been made by the European Parliament on subjects like equality, women's rights, ethnic minorities, racial inequalities, or even homosexuality, and how could they be adopted by every member, every country, so that Europe can be, as a whole, a place of equality?
Hi, my name is Jessica. I'm from Ireland. I was just wondering, in terms of the EU presidency, do you think it would ever be extended to a year rather than 6 months?
Hello, thank you for affording me the opportunity to speak to the floor. The judicial aspect of the European Union was brought up earlier, and it was mentioned that countries that don't comply with the European law are fined by the European Court. My question is, where does that money go? Thank you.
My question is in regards to cyber terrorism. What precautions or policies, if any, have been put in place in Europe to protect its citizens?
Two of the main areas in every society is education and healthcare. There is massive economic inequality among these two areas across the EU. The EU is supposed to be a family of equality. Why isn't the EU tackling this economic equality?
To tackle terrorism, would the EU be willing to reflect USA security in terms of intelligence agencies and the collecting of extremist intelligence to try counteract terrorism before it becomes fatal throughout the EU? Thank you.
We identified three main points here. The first of these was the motto prevention rather than reaction. This applies in particular to children. In other words, we should be trying to teach children to grow up in an environmentally conscious way. But we have to do this in such a way as to ensure that they still have fun, they find it enjoyable. So our approach was to develop games which helps teach children how to behave in an environmentally friendly or an environmentally neutral way. So, for example, what are the advantages of separating your waste? How do you do it? Or how can you save water? How can we promote sustainable development? The idea here is eco-villages. These are towns or villages where they try and limit emissions. Obviously they have public transport and energy is generated using renewable sources such as wind energy or hydroelectric, so as to ensure that the village or town can be CO2 neutral.
You spoke a lot about incentives to get young children to be more environmentally friendly, but do you have any ideas for people our age, you know, in their 20s and in their teens, to help the environment? Because I don't think we'd be as interested in games as the younger children.
That was the third point I referred to. In other words, a twin-pronged approach, taxation, accompanied by information campaigns via the media telling people about virtuous behaviour. In other words, that would enable us to target everybody, not just children. Of course, we need to educate children to be more environmentally friendly, but at the same time we also have to help adults understand what they can do. So via the TV, media, radio, we can help everybody understand what will happen if we continue to behave in such an unthinking way, and we hope that would be successful.
With regards to the first question was to do with why the EU should be concerned with looking after non-EU countries, and there was three main reasons we came up with why we should be concerned. So the first reason was to do with moral, in that a lot of people are concerned with lives, in that with aid that the EU can give, we can improve lives, so you can improve the standard of living through aid with maybe water supplies or food supplies, and then also saving lives, like decreasing the mortality rate in least developed countries. The next point, which is kind of the main point we focused on and why we should give aid, was due to colonisation, in that for a good while, European countries had colonies, especially in Africa, in that the EU countries took resources from them. So what happened was they lost an awful lot of resources, and once they gained independence, they were very underdeveloped and were struggled. So we feel that the EU is kind of responsible in looking after them and ensuring that they get back up on their feet and become developed. And the third point to do with that was benefit to both sides, in that whenever we give aid, it's not just a one-way system, in that once the country becomes developed, we gain access to trade and it becomes sustainability, and the EU can widen with the countries as become more developed might consider joining the EU.
You know how you've said that you've failed to reach the goals that you set for yourself in the last 15 years? If these goals have failed, why should we continue for another 15 years? Is it worth it?
Well, we can't really give up. As I said, the EU is a beacon of hope. So, for example, if we were to give up and leave these countries without any help, leave them behind, it would be exactly the same problems we created whenever we give them independence from colonisation. So by setting these aims, there's no guarantee we can reach them, but it's going to improve the standard of living and decrease mortality rates for these countries. So we feel it would be a great benefit, even if they're not entirely reached.
As far as subsidies is concerned, I'd like to know whether one of the conditions would be good democratic principles of governance in the countries in question.
Yeah, so that would be one of the main points, in that whenever we're assigning the financial aid and stuff, the condition would be that they would agree to EU ideals. So for governance, we'd help out construct their policies in order to ensure that they would be able to become democracies, I suppose.
Now, when it came to education, perhaps we could change the curricula in the countries so that the curricula in all of the member states of the EU actually went hand in hand, or very similar. So the reaction that we had to that was that we should change things, yes, but not change everything, because each country should be able to keep its cultural specificity. So we would like to have more European subjects, for example, in geography and history. We could learn more about how European links were forged, and we feel that there isn't enough emphasis on that in our history classes and our geography classes as it stands right now. So that's one thing that we would like to change. Now, as to the public education system and protecting that, it is fundamental that European Union member states have a public education system, because it's the way that we can make sure that students are all treated in the same way, and it's so important for equality or equal opportunities. We would like the European Parliament, therefore, to work in that and to make sure that the public education system is indeed preserved. Turning to discrimination, there is clearly discrimination within the EU. But we had a proposal of coming up with a system in which everyone would hand out an anonymous curriculum vitae. So when a company is seeking to recruit someone, there wouldn't be a name, nor a photograph, nor an indication as to whether or not the person is a man or a woman. That way, the person that is trying to recruit can recruit a person based on their skills and what they have done.
I thought the idea of anonymous applications was very good. However, what do you think would happen later? At some stage, obviously, photographs and names would have to be provided, at which stage it will become clear that the person is a migrant. So how would you deal with the risk of discrimination at later stages in the application process?
You are perfectly correct. So, anonymous curriculum CVs would be a way for companies to not hide behind their paper, if I can put it that way. The person would have an anonymous CV, but then if the person came into the room, well, the person would no longer be able to hide behind their paper because the person is there. The person is in the room for the interview, so would be able to. So then, if the person were to discriminate against them once they were face to face, then they would be able to bring a case before the European Court of Justice, for example. So we want to bring the discrimination to light.
The first proposal we brought about was that European media experts from all the 28 member states of the European Union should be united on a European Union funded committee. The idea is that they will go back to their respective newspapers within the countries, and there will be a section on the European Union. because, as we said today ourselves when we voted over the electronic voting system, we don't know enough about the European Union, and this information is freely available to us, and we need it to be brought further to us so that our public opinion and our togetherness in Europe can be shaped. There would have to be structured guidelines for this. We don't want them taking a negative slant, but we can't force them to take a positive slant either. How we would do this would be tell them that they pick what they want to talk about relating to the European Union in their respective newspapers. However, it would have to be somewhat objective. Another proposal that links in with this is to do with the same committee. We believe that there should be a European Union united newspaper. What we propose is a newspaper related upon the European Union for the people of the European Union in the languages of the people of the European Union. Whether you come from Ireland, whether you come from the Netherlands, whether you come from Greece, it'll be in your native language, and it's news that'll bring us together further as one people and one body who live in Europe together and share this space together.
I very much agree that there's a need to find ways to disseminate information about the European Union to young people. Though I'm not quite sure newspapers are the right medium to do so. Of course, there are groups of young people that are interested in newspapers, but I'm just thinking, broadly speaking, surely we should look at something more digital, something that will be more attractive to young people.
I forgot to mention what we're proposing. It's to do with those newspapers. Newspapers in the respective countries, as well as having their daily or weekly print on paper, they do have their Facebook page, they have their Twitter page, they have Instagram, and lots of them have YouTube as well. What we would propose is that these guidelines would go back, and that they would constantly have information upon the European Union put up on their Facebook, put up on their Twitter, put up on YouTube, so that young people like us, the people who are the future of Europe, who need to know a lot more about the European Union and need to get more actively engaged and united together for the common well of the European Union, have this sort of medium and have this interactive means. Especially the one we talked about was YouTube. I understand not everybody enjoys reading. Not everyone enjoys having to go through a whole massive article, but we all would watch movies, we'd all go to the cinema or whatever. If you have, and everyone loves YouTube, if you go on and watch videos that bring across this information and hand it over to you, this would be absolutely a perfect way to do it, because it's getting the information across in a way that young people can engage with.
So the first proposal that we wish to give to the House is that we would create one policy throughout Europe for migration and integration, and show them as co-responsibles in order to reach the max, or in order to capitalise really to the fullest extent on migration. We would create a sense of uniformity in how we respond to migrants by recognising that migration is an EU-wide problem and is best served in the context of enforced subsidiarity. We believe that the education of youth is absolutely paramount in order to ensuring the full integration. The Office of Economic Cooperation and Development said migration is of no use to a country unless our migrants are successfully integrated. And so today we have to say that we must have an approach where we successfully integrate migrants. Moving on from this education of youth, which is absolutely paramount and which will take up the burden of most resources, we will have social education. We will teach our migrants what are the norms in society. We will teach them what is socially acceptable in order to aid them in their integration into society. We must move beyond the European Integration Fund of 2007 to 2013, which really dealt with the practical aspects of migrants' integration into life. We must move to the point where we really immerse them in our life of Europe. We also want to create a European culture where we embrace the migrant and the value that the migrant has on our society.
Okay, so first of all, you said more than once that migration was a problem, and I would like you to define why exactly it would be a problem. And second of all, later on, you said that you would give the opportunity for them to learn our norms and the way we live in our society. And I would like to say, isn't the goal of Europe to share the different cultures that we can bring? And isn't it the goal of Europe to differentiate ourselves and not just follow one same example.
I said migration is a problem because it is a problem. We do not know how to manage migration in Europe when we have such a deficit in countries. We have 10 countries dealing with migration and 18 other countries not bothering. We are a union of equal members, a family, and we should be dealing with this problem together. Migration is also a problem when we have asylum seekers dying in our seas trying to get. Our system is fundamentally flawed, and because of that, we need to deal with migration. But the third and most important point that I said there was that we, as Europe, embrace the migrant. We see the value that the migrant can bring to our community, and that there has to coexist and be co-responsible for dealing with this problem.
What leads to employment was a question we first asked. The answer we got was education. We need to improve how our education system improves people for employment. We need to produce employers, not just employees. Our first way to do this was to encourage mandatory work experience for all schools, where people go out of their school environment at our age and go into the work environment, so they learn what it's actually like. They learn if the route they want to go down is right for them. Speaking for our group that we were in, everybody was saying that this is what we needed to do. It would be 1 week, at least 1 week per year would be mandatory, that the pupils would have to go out and plan themselves, and up to 2 weeks in the last 3 years of education to ensure that they're adequately prepared for the rest of their working life. Another proposal we would bring before the House is to increase the uptake of technical schools, or professional schools as they're called in some parts of Europe, where there is both study and practical tuition given. This would include apprenticeships within companies, which would increase employment. Some apprenticeship schemes have 90% employment rates at the end. That is what we need for Europe now. This allows people to learn the practical skills that they need for their jobs. And we would encourage these schools, these colleges, but we would not impose them on people. We would make the option available to help decrease unemployment. Another thing we intend to pass today is to increase the amount of self-employment. People not just becoming employees, but becoming employers and setting up their own businesses. This will include support for young people and all people who wish to set up their own business. This would take the form of help with business plans, possible tax breaks or grants given to the young people, and some limited loans for companies as well to help them get through the most fragile stages of their growth, which is at the very beginning.
Hello. You said about the 1 week internship in 1 year, but do you really think it's enough? Because, for example, in Finland there are 4 months internship every year, and still we are without job because we don't have any enough experience, so your solution isn't solving any problems in my point of view. Thank you.
Whenever young people go to job interviews and apply for jobs, they're told that they don't have enough work experience. They're told that they don't have enough experience in the job, so the employer can't give them that. So by solving that, I'm more than confident that that will help young people get into work.